At 11:52, my phone buzzed, a quiet vibration that felt like the snap of a long-rotted beam inside me. One sentence, no punctuation, no apology. And with it, 15 years of strained family harmony finally collapsed. I quit. You'll cover things while I reset. That was it. Not even a hello, just another command wrapped in entitlement, as if my life existed to cushion Sarah's next collapse. My hands, still damp from the sink, froze in midair. A familiar pulse of old wounds flared, the kind that never really healed, only waited for another tear. For the first time, I didn't swallow the resentment. I didn't play the dependable martyr. I wrote back, not my responsibility. The words felt like flicking a match into a room soaked in years of quiet rage. Then, I opened my laptop and signed the overseas contract I'd been too guilty to accept. The one that promised freedom, distance, and maybe a taste of retribution for all the times I'd been bled dry. 10 minutes later, my screen lit up again. Mum. Her name alone felt like a warning bell. What she wrote next wasn't a question or concern. It was an accusation disguised as family duty. It forced me to choose loyalty or liberation, blood or breath. Before we go on, answer me this. Have you ever been the pillar everyone leans on until you're nothing but splinters? They say family keeps you grounded. They never mention it can also bury you. I'd always been the anchor of ours. Linda, 32, operations manager, the woman who colour codes her life so others don't fall apart. My parents called me reliable, which really meant available for sacrifice. From the outside, our house in Blackwater Hill looked like a postcard. A roast in the oven, the drone of a game show from the other room, candles softening the chipped paint. People would think warmth lived there. They'd never see the ledger under the tablecloth. Mom would pass the bread and murmur, "Your sister's spirit just needs support," which in our family dialect meant, "Sarah failed again. Open your wallet." Dad would grunt behind his beer, too tired or indifferent to challenge the system. And I, prisoner of habit, would reach automatically for the check. Sarah's smile, all effortless charm and curated innocence, was the reward she offered for my obedience. Insurance, rent deposits, the phone plan she always forgot to pay, even vet bills for her dog, whom I'd only ever seen through blurry photos. My notes app was a graveyard of transactions no one acknowledged. Mum loved to say things, balance out eventually. That balance usually meant I bled quietly while everyone else drifted unburdened through life. William noticed before I did. "They love you because it's easy for them," he'd said one night. "Not because they see you." His voice was soft, but the truth behind it cut deep. I laughed then, pretending it didn't hurt. But the words lodged somewhere under my ribs, smouldering. The last Sunday dinner I attended still stings when I think about it. Sarah swept in 20 minutes late, wrapped in an outfit that screamed luxury. Mum greeted her like a returning soldier, hands cupping Sarah's cheeks as if she'd survived a battlefield instead of a manicure appointment. "You've had such a tough week," she whispered. I uncorked the wine, jaw tight enough to crack a tooth. Later, when Mum leaned close and said, "You're lucky, Linda. You don't need anyone to take care of you." I felt something inside me coil, tight, hot, ready. That night, I scrolled through the list of debts again. Each item glowed like a tally mark of betrayal, proof of how far I had bent to protect a peace no one else fought for. I didn't know it then, but that supposed peace was already dissolving, and for once I wasn't scrambling to save it. The unravelling started subtly, a missed deadline, a casual "spot me until next month," a forgotten bill that somehow became mine to handle. By autumn, their requests had shape-shifted into expectations. Help wasn't asked for, it was assumed. And then came Sarah's grand announcement at dinner. She made quitting her job sound like a spiritual awakening. "It was toxic," she sighed, stabbing her dinner theatrically. "I'm choosing myself." Mum clasped her hands, worshipful. "So brave, sweetheart." When I took one sick day last year, she told me I was exaggerating. Sarah's boyfriend, Richard, beamed at her like a disciple admiring his prophet. She's focusing on her creative path. Dad nodded solemnly. Faith matters most. I stared at my plate, realizing with a hollow clarity that something inside me had shifted. The safety net they'd walked across for years was beginning to fray, and this time I wasn't rushing to mend it. Retribution, I suppose, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it begins with a simple, quiet no. I almost asked whether Faith planned to contribute to rent, but the question died bitterly on my tongue. After dinner, Mum tugged me into the kitchen, her fingers soft but purposeful, the way someone touches a person they expect obedience from. Honey, she whispered as if unveiling a tragedy. Sarah's in a fragile place. She just needs a little runway. You understand? I did. That runway was paved with my paychecks and my quiet compliance. Later that night, in my dark apartment, the only sound was the refrigerator humming like a distant warning. I sat at the table, phone in hand, my notes app glowing with the record of every debt I'd patched, every rescue I'd funded. The numbers blurred until they became something else entirely, a cartography of burnout, a map of where my own identity had eroded. 2 weeks passed. Then came the text, the one that detonated everything. It was almost noon. Thin morning light spilled into the kitchen, dim and deceptively gentle. My phone buzzed on the counter. I'm quitting my job. You'll take care of us while I figure things out. No greeting, no hesitation, just expectation. The kind forged from years of knowing I'd always fold. I stood there with my toothbrush still in my mouth, letting the words throb in my chest. For years, my reflex had been immediate. Fix it, fund it, fortify the chaos. But something shifted. A slow awakening. A quiet rebellion hot in my blood. Maybe it was William's voice echoing from some tucked-away corner of memory. You've been paying for permission to be loved. That line clung to me like prophecy. I wiped my hands, opened the message, and typed, "That's not on me." My fingers shook slightly, not from fear, but from the unfamiliar taste of freedom. Hitting send felt like lighting a fuse under the only bridge I'd ever known. Silence followed. Not even the courtesy of outrage, just the faint whir of the bathroom fan and my own heartbeat in my ears. I walked into the living room, dazed. There on my laptop glowed the contract for Ravenport, the overseas job I'd admired and feared in equal measure. For months I'd hovered over it, convinced my absence would shatter the delicate ecosystem of crises my family rotated through. Mum will panic, Sarah will collapse, Dad will guilt-trip you into staying. Not this time. I clicked sign. A tiny notification blinked. Document completed. No fanfare, no applause. But something deep inside me, a knot made of duty and resentment, loosened. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up. Mum. I didn't open it. Instead, I stared at her name, glowing against the dark screen, and felt the air tighten. I already knew whatever came next wouldn't be affection. It would be the cost of defiance, the price of refusing to bleed on command. When I finally checked, her message was as precise as a blade. If you won't help your sister, don't come to Thanksgiving. For years, that sentence would have crushed me. Not because I craved turkey or stilted conversation, but because exclusion was the punishment that kept me in orbit. Guilt was their currency, and I'd always paid in full. This time, the corners of my mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. More like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. "That's supposed to scare me," I whispered. It didn't. It felt like release. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and stared at the confirmation email. Ravenport, housing included. Start date, Monday. A life I'd barely dared to imagine was waiting quietly on the other side of a single decision. For the first time, it struck me. My family hadn't just drained my account. They drained my ability to picture a world without their gravity. That too was about to change. I opened a new tab. Online banking. My pulse picked up, but it wasn't fear. It was clarity sharpened into action. One by one, I scrolled through the auto payments I'd carried for years. Family phone plan, Sarah's car insurance, utilities tied to my parents' house, cancel, remove, deactivate. Each click was a small act of retribution, a quiet form of personal justice. I half expected thunder to crack or my mother to appear in the doorway. Instead, silence, clean, weightless. My phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Aunt Karen, her voice dripping with the kind of spiritual guilt that always favoured the takers. Sweetheart, family gives and receives. Maybe you can give a little extra this season. God will return it tenfold. Delete. Later, William called, his voice warm and steady, wrapped around me. You did it, he said. I think so, I exhaled. I finally said no. You didn't say no, he corrected softly. You said yes to yourself. The words landed like truth I'd been waiting my whole life to hear. After we hung up, I opened a blank document titled Exit Plan. I typed it in bold, then listed each step like instructions for survival. Remove myself from their phone plan, unlink Sarah's insurance, cancel the utilities, freeze shared credit lines, move savings into a new account. Each line tightened a thread I hadn't realised was still loose. When I finished, I leaned back and exhaled, a long, shaky breath that felt like stepping into a life where my time, my money, and my sanity finally belonged to me. Old reflexes die slowly. Even as I tried to settle into the silence, some part of me kept glancing at my phone, waiting for a call that would never come. Some miracle where Mum apologised or admitted she'd pushed too far. Instead, the screen showed 23 unread messages by midnight. Not one said I'm proud of you. Most read like warnings, accusations, punishments sharpened into sentences. You'll regret this. Think before you ruin everything. You're being selfish. Maybe I would regret it. But at least the regret would finally belong to me, not to them. As I closed my laptop, the notification for the Ravenport contract blinked again. Flight confirmed. I whispered the number like a secret spell. 5 days. 5 days until freedom. 5 days until the gravity of my family's expectations no longer dictated every breath I took. Mum didn't wait long to deploy her next tactic. By morning, my phone looked like a battlefield. Dozens of messages pinged non-stop. Guilt packaged as concern. Disappointment disguised as duty. Mum, family meeting tonight. Dad, we expect you here at 7. Sarah, don't make this harder than it already is. It was startling how fast they could shift. Yesterday's please turning into today's how dare you the moment I stepped out of line. I stared at the avalanche of messages for a long moment, then typed the simplest, cleanest truth of my life. I won't be there. The typing bubbles appeared instantly, like an attack formation. Mum, yes, you will. Sarah, unbelievable. Dad, watch your tone. I silenced the thread and flipped my phone face down. The quiet that followed felt almost sacred, like the first breath after years of drowning. But at 6:52 p.m, the doorbell rang anyway. I checked the peephole. Dad stood there in his work shirt, shoulders tense, jaw clenched, eyes hard with the righteousness of someone who assumes obedience. Open the door, Linda, he barked. Don't do this. I'm not playing games, I said, voice calm through the wood. He muttered something about disrespect, the family's favourite accusation, but I stayed still, letting the silence answer for me. After a moment, his footsteps retreated down the hall. I locked the deadbolt twice, leaned my back against the door, exhaled shakily. They hadn't come to talk. They'd come to win. The next morning, Mum tried a different weapon, softness. Her voicemail was thick with manufactured tremble. Sweetheart, Sarah's trying her best. She just needs support. Just this once. Think of what family means. I deleted it before she finished. By evening, a FaceTime call came through. The family council. I nearly ignored it, but some part of me wanted to see their faces, wanted to finally stop pretending. When the screen brightened, all three of them stared back. Mom in the kitchen, wearing martyrdom like perfume. Dad at the head of the table, arms crossed, Sarah beside her, mascara smudged for dramatic emphasis. Richard hovered behind them, scrolling his phone like a bored spectator. "Linda," Mum began softly, "can we talk like adults?" "I thought that's what I've been doing," I said. Sarah lunged forward. "You embarrassed us. You made me look pathetic." "I didn't make you anything," I replied. "You sent a demand. I declined." Her lips quivered. "You don't believe in me. You never have." That line had worked on me before. Guilt coated in sentiment. "Belief isn't the same as co-signing your chaos," I said evenly. Richard let out a low, smug laugh. "She's just tense. No wonder she's single half the year." My voice didn't waver. "Richard, you hear yourself, right?" He smirked. "Relax. It was a joke." Mum's patience snapped. "Enough. Sarah's business could change her entire future. She just needs someone responsible on the paperwork." Dad leaned forward, hands clasped like a judge about to sentence me. "It's not even risky. Just a small loan. 150. You'll co-sign, that's all." "That's all," I echoed, letting the words simmer. "You're asking me to guarantee a $150,000 loan for someone who quit her job last week." Mum's voice sharpened. "Don't be dramatic. We raised you better." Something inside me snapped, but not with anger, with precision. "You didn't raise me to say yes. You raised me to survive saying no." Silence thickened like fog. Dad's face reddened. "Watch your tone." "I am," I said quietly. "This is my calm tone." Mum narrowed her eyes. "So that's it? You're abandoning your family?" "I'm abandoning the role you assigned me," I said. "I'm done being your financial plan." Sarah broke into tears, mascara trailing down her cheeks like ink. "You're punishing me for being different." "I'm setting boundaries," I replied. "Different concepts." Mum slammed her palm onto the table. "You will regret this, Linda." I nodded once. "Maybe. But if I do, it'll be on my own dime." I ended the call. Seconds later, the group chat erupted. Paragraphs from Mum, threats from Dad, Bible quotes from Aunt Karen, crying emojis from distant cousins. Then, one final message from Sarah. "You destroyed this family." I stared at it, didn't answer. Some ruins aren't worth rebuilding. I muted every alert on my phone, like dimming the last buzzing nerves of an old wound, then opened my exit plan. The list stared back at me, each item a small rebellion waiting to be executed. Remove from phone plan, detach from insurance, shut down utilities, close shared credit line. With every box I checked, something loosened inside me. By nightfall, 43 missed calls trembled on my screen, like ghosts pounding at the door. None were from William. He understood the silence I needed. When he finally called, his voice slid through the speaker like warm light. "You sound different," he murmured. "I think I'm done," I whispered. "Then finish it. Not for revenge, so you can breathe." That struck deeper than I wanted to admit. At 10:04 the next morning, I drafted my final message to Mum. "I'm leaving for North Harbour on Monday. Please contact me only in emergencies." My hand shook, the old instinct to obey, tightening once more. Then I pressed send. Retaliation arrived within hours. Mum's melodramatic posts about children who forget their roots. Aunt Karen forwarding sanctimonious messages about forgiveness and divine wrath. Sarah posting a vague story. Sometimes the ones you love hold you back, complete with a filter that made her eyes look extra mournful. They wanted shame to swallow me whole. Instead, I felt a cool, steady kind of clarity. Monday morning, I zipped up my suitcase. My apartment felt stripped and sharp-edged. Cold air, clean counters, bills tied only to my name. For the first time, my life fit into one piece of luggage without feeling small. As I rolled the suitcase toward the door, my phone buzzed. "Mum, we won't forget this." I typed slowly, savouring every letter. "Neither will I." Then I powered the phone off. At the airport, as the plane thundered to life, I thought of every Thanksgiving table where my silence had been the currency that bought their comfort. I thought of every yes that kept them warm while I froze. And I thought of that one small no that made the whole fragile village collapse. When the wheels left the ground, I felt something of mine rise with them. A quiet vindication, not dramatic, just real. North Harbour was colder than the pictures suggested. The sky hung low and metallic. The streets smelled of sea wind and rain. But the silence, it didn't demand. It soothed. My company apartment was tiny. White walls, single bedroom, narrow view of the canal. But every drawer, every light switch, every bill belonged to me alone. No borrowed keys, no shared debt, no invisible chains. The first week, I moved through the rooms like someone relearning the weight of their own footsteps. I woke early, walked to work over cobblestones glistening from last night's rain, bought coffee that tasted like choice instead of obligation. Evenings were quiet. Too quiet at first. I kept bracing for a text, a crisis, a catastrophe that never materialized. Eventually, the quiet became familiar. Eventually, it felt earned. William arrived that Friday, suitcase in hand and a grin that softened the whole space. "You really left," he said, laughing under his breath. "And somehow," I said, "I survived." He looked around. "It's peaceful here." "I'm still getting used to peaceful," I admitted. We ate dinner on the couch, candles flickering against the rain-slick window. My phone sat face down, untouched. When I finally lifted it, there were no new messages. For once, silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like mercy. Weeks slipped by. I was promoted early, led a project without anyone interrupting my life with emergencies of their own making. I made friends who wanted conversations, not rescues. One evening, I opened my old financial notes, the endless list of bills I used to treat like sacred scripture. I added one final line. Emotional debt settled. A month later, Mum left a voicemail. Her voice was softer, almost unfamiliar. "We're fine, sweetheart. Sarah found part-time work. Your dad says hello." I didn't call back, but I smiled. Distance was rebuilding things in ways closeness never could. Some nights I stood by the window, watching the canal lights ripple across the dark water. The old version of me would have felt guilty for feeling okay. The new version whispered, "This is mine." One quiet Sunday morning, sunlight spilled across the table, steam rose from my coffee, and the world was still. No buzzing phone, no hidden demands, just space. I thought about the message that shattered 15 years of false peace. "You'll take care of us." I once believed that meant love. Now I knew better. Real love doesn't drain you. It steadies you. I looked out over the North Harbour skyline and let myself breathe. Peace didn't arrive with celebration. It arrived with silence. If you've ever chosen yourself after years of guilt, share your story. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone.